Hey everybody, it's Brandon, the Weekend Cruiser, where I go on a weekend cruise about every weekend. And these days, I've been sailing on the freedom of the seas. Now, as you know, we already had one video where we chatted through the new COVID testing protocols and boarding protocols with Royal Caribbean's weekend cruises. Today, they are changing again. So I wanted to ensure that you are well informed of all of these changes. If you have not already, make sure that you're sailing into that subscribe button down below, pressing the alerts button, and even liking this video if you find it helpful to make sure that you stay up to date on all the latest news as it continues to change. So the change for Royal Caribbean was kind of inevitable, if you will. Like, I saw that one coming, alluded to it in the last video, but the way that it changed, or the way that this has gone down, has kind of surprised me a little bit. And so I'm gonna go into some more details, maybe even a conspiracy theory here at the end of the video on why I think that it worked out this way and why it's genius. So the best place to continue to get information on the updates to Royal Caribbean's testing policies, boarding protocols is still their website. So if you follow me here, there's a few places on where we can get to that. Up here at the top, they've got a banner that you can quickly get to the information there. You also can scroll down and you're gonna see the Visit Healthy Sail Center, which is where we wanna go. So that's where it's gonna make sure that we're keeping up with all of their testing protocols. You're gonna see that they're really only pushing that information out about every 30 days, which gives them that flexibility to change the policy as they need to. The September's policy, and it is August 20th, just dropped today. So the first section is gonna say, hey, let's make sure that your ship's actually sailing, that it hasn't been canceled, rescheduled. And then this next section where it goes into the vaccine testing and travel documents, that's where you're gonna wanna click on to see the actual regulations for your sailing. So where are you sailing from? Pretty easy for all of us, it's gonna be from Florida. So you see there's now two different options. We've got the old August policy that we can click into, or we can click into the September sailing for our weekend cruises, which is of course what I'm always biasly interested in. So when we come into this, it's gonna give you a little bit of disclaimer saying, hey, if you're not on one of these ships in September, make sure that you're going somewhere else, but we're good to go here. And it gets straight to the point on the vaccination requirement. Guests age 12 and older must present proof of COVID-19 vaccination with a final dose at least 14 days out. And all crew aboard the ship at our private destinations at Coco Cay are also fully vaccinated. There's a lot of great information into the detailed vaccine frequently asked questions. If you want to check on an exemption, see what you can do there. It's all going to be housed inside of here. Now, that makes these sailings fully vaccinated, again, for those guests aged 12 and older. So to recap on what you need to do to get ready for your weekend cruise, the first thing is you wanna make sure that you have your second dose. They haven't switched it over to the third dose or that booster shot yet. It's still the second dose, 14 days out, or you have your Johnson & Johnson 1-dose shot 14 days out. So make sure that you are getting that and your documentation for your card is filled out correctly. I've seen several people that have showed up at the port where, you know, the place that they went to didn't write a date on it. They left a barcode out. Something happened where it was incomplete. So make sure you look at your card. You see that it is accurate so that you don't get to the port and you have an issue. If you need to go back to the place that sent it, they will issue you a second vaccination card. But make sure if you've not used that yet or had anybody proof it, that you're the first one to do that, to give yourself plenty of time to get a new one that is correct should you need to. So you're fully vaccinated. The next thing you're gonna need to do is still make sure that you don't have COVID. So 3 days prior to your cruise, for us weekend cruisers leaving on a Friday, that is a Tuesday appointment that you can make, or you can make it on a Wednesday if you think your results will come back quicker, or if you're doing a midweek sailing, you can get that appointment on a Friday since you're sailing on a Monday. So you wanna make sure that you are scheduling time to get your test done 3 days in advance. If you are a child aged 2 to 11, you're gonna need to do an additional test when you get to the cruise terminal. They're gonna re-administer a PCR test to you on boarding day just to double check that you are not bringing COVID onto the ship. And I say that, I mean, again, I think that COVID will always be able to find a way onto the ship, vaccinated or unvaccinated, but it's one additional screener that Royal is doing to hopefully keep it from coming onto the ship. This is also at no charge to you because they're 2 to 11. They're not allowed to get vaccinated. Royal says we will cover the cost at the cruise port for you. Prior to disembarking, if the cruise is longer than 5 nights, that is not really for us weekend cruisers. We know that we're on those 3 and those 4 nights. But if you are watching this video and you're going on one that may be 5 nights or longer out of South Florida in September, you may need an additional test. So a checklist of your documents, please make sure that you do go through this prior to your boarding. I would even say a week prior to your boarding. Of course, you still need your passport or birth certificate if you're traveling from South Florida to some of the places here. You want to make sure that you do have those with you. COVID vaccination record, you're going to check that to make sure that it's accurate, has all the information on it. You're going to need to schedule your COVID test somewhere. If you're going to one of those big box pharmacy retailers, I recommend about a week out you need to schedule that. They have been selling out closer to the actual days. And then on the actual day of, Royal is going to send you an email. The app may pop up with a notification. You're going to complete your health questionnaire saying that you have or have not experienced a list of about 10 different symptoms, including headache, nausea, fever. You know the drill on those things. So make sure that you are filling that out the day before. If you do forget to fill that one out, they'll ask you the questions when you get to the port. So no worry if you just happen to forget, time gets away from you. Trust me, I know how that can work. So let's talk about how this came to be. So the Bahamas passed the Emergency Powers COVID-19 Pandemic Management and Recovery Regulation 2021. This changes a couple of different things. It goes through and amends some previous documents they had, including some island curfews, but it specifically calls out cruise ships, and that cruise ships, in order to port in the Bahamas, must be fully vaccinated, including the crew and the guest age 12 and older. So there are some exceptions to this policy. So if it was already agreed upon from the cruise line, given some of their revenue, contractors, things like that, those rules will not change. Should the ship be in distress or there's an emergency situation going on, it's also still allowed to port in the Bahamas. Or if somebody needs to get off for medical treatment, they are allowed to transfer that person in the Bahamas and get them the medical treatment that they need. This provision or regulation does something really interesting to me. It calls out specifically the private islands, that this includes those private islands such as Royal Caribbean's Coco Cay. Now I find this interesting because a lot of people think that the private island should not follow a lot of the rules of the Bahamian government, which to me doesn't necessarily make sense. If we were in the US and I had my own private island, I'm still subject to the laws and regulations of the US, whatever county that, island may be in, whatever they pass, I'm still subject to that. So it's interesting to me that the Bahamian government specifically calls out this is for the Bahamas and the private islands of the cruise ships. I guess just to clarify any confusion or people thinking that those islands may be sovereign and that they don't adhere to the rules of the Bahamian government, but that is not the case. As you all know, these private islands are exclusively owned by the cruise lines themselves, and there's many out there, but that's where they make a lot of revenue. So people are drinking their drinks, they're eating their food, they're buying their different items. The casinos may even be open these days in these private islands. In Nassau, a lot of people stay on the ship, they're still spending their money. This is a really good way for the cruise lines to save money and to make money, which is what they're really trying to do these days because we all know that they're hurting for some revenue. It also has to do with the Jones Act there. So this is the legislation, the Passenger Act of 1920 that was passed years ago. And you may have heard some of this with the whole Alaska debacle that we had to get legislation involved so that we could skip Canada for the Alaska cruise season. So that is now up and running. But for South Florida, you still have to go to another country before returning to South Florida. The Bahamas is the absolute closest. Going somewhere else would cost the cruise lines a lot of money. And again, I don't even know that there would be enough time. So my thought on all of this, instead of the cruise lines going head to head with the Florida government, they worked with the Bahamian government and said, hey, look, like COVID's on the rise, like it's the scary thing that's out there. What do you think about passing legislation that, maybe we should be, fully vaccinated? And so I think, don't hold me to this one, that the cruise lines worked directly with the Bahamian government to pass this updated regulation specifying that cruise ships must be fully vaccinated. It almost gives the state government a way out of saying, okay, so we're not going to push this anymore because all the other countries, you kind of blame it on them, have put these regulations out there. We don't want the cruise lines to go under. So we're going to back off. We recognize that these policies are kind of out of our control at this point, and it gives the state government almost an out so that they don't look bad should they not follow through with the appeal with NCL and eventually say that the cruise lines cannot require those vaccine cards, which all the other countries that they're sailing to says that they must. It's just a really tough situation, or it's going to be a really good situation for everybody to work out. So those are my thoughts on the new vaccination policy. Again, everybody ages 12 and up must be vaccinated for Royal Caribbean sailing out of South Florida. Make sure that you're checking the website. If you've enjoyed this content on the Weekend Cruise, you've liked this video, found it informative, make sure that you are sailing on into that subscribe button down below, giving it a thumbs up, and setting the alert so that you get future updates on all the changes. As you can see from the video I posted last week to this week, it has changed once again, but we're gonna make sure we keep you well informed. Thanks everybody, and hope to see you on a Weekend Cruise soon.